are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so I'm Chip Hixon. I'm with this company, Frozen Dessert Supplies. I work as a director of marketing here, so we're working with shops all throughout the United States who are purchasing ice cream cups or coffee cups or compostable cups, lids, straws, spoons. And I'm over all of our marketing for that.
Yeah, that's sweet. And from what I understand, you didn't start out in marketing. So how did you get, to this point where you're now head of marketing for a pretty good sized company?
I started out in sales as a member of our sales team at the time. I came from another company in sales and had the opportunity to come work here on this sales team. And I guess became very familiar with customers and familiar with products and building a team. And we had a lot of changes. I actually started in 2020 in January before everything changed, especially for restaurants and in-place dining. Mm-hmm. And through that, I ended up leading our sales team as a director of sales. And then over time worked into like a director of sales and customer experience. And then I led our people and our culture. And then I'm now in marketing. So it's been a journey of a lot of roles and a lot of learning.
Yeah. Do you think you'll stick in a marketing type role more long term, or do you think there might be more shifts in the future?
Yeah. I mean, the way I see my job as an employee is to support the employer. And so right now I report to the CEO, and whatever he wants me to do, that's my job. So I'll go wherever he wants. That being said, I found a lot of rhythm and love in what I'm doing right now with marketing. Mm-hmm. And I could see this being something I do forever.
Yeah, cool. Love it. So you kind of touched on this a little bit, but what does your skill development journey look like? So you said you kind of started in sales, but maybe even more granular than that. What are some of kind of the first things that you had to learn to then be able to be decent at sales, and then from sales, it's what's the skills that you stacked on sales to be able to manage people and, that kind of stuff.
Totally.
What was that skill stack that you kind of built over time?
Yeah, it's a good question. I feel like, it's been, I guess, 20 plus years of living life and learning about people and how to communicate with people. And I think probably the first skill, if there's a hierarchy of skills needed, the first skill that I was able to learn just throughout my life was how to communicate, how to articulate, how to not let my lack of communication get in the way of a message I'm trying to share. And so the first and probably most primal skill that would be needed would be to communicate. Mm-hmm. Communication, one of the facets that builds off of that is the ability to ask questions and to be able to articulate questions in a way that generate responses that I can actually learn, right? And so I feel like at this company, for example, starting in sales, I was doing a lot of outbound sales. Mm-hmm. And so trying to find the most effective ways to communicate with customers in a quick way, in a short way, to try to generate value quickly and be helpful to them. From that, asking questions on how I can improve and getting critical feedback. I have not had a ton of formal education around anything that I've done professionally. It's all been on the job. And with that, I think it's been this total hierarchy or pyramid of communication into asking questions. Mm-hmm. And from there, applying, obviously, what I take away from the answers I get. Yeah. And I'm a total believer in failing fast. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like the fastest learning is going to happen by doing. And so we try to move really fast here. In every team that I've led, we've had a spirit of moving quick, implementing very fast. And that's helped me then, alongside communication and asking questions, learning where we're failing, where we're falling short. And fast failure has led to quick learning. And I think it's just been super important. In the spirit of leading people, there's probably 3 super critical skills that have become important to me and kind of the way I look at leadership in general, which the first skill would be the ability to build trust with the people you're leading. Yeah. And if there's a one-liner for that, I kind of look at it as the people I lead need to know that it's about them, not me, or that I'm not in it to look good for me, but it's for them to succeed. And so believing that and then communicating that effectively and asking questions to gauge that that's working. But we need to establish trust. We need to establish then esteem, which is essentially delivering on the scale I'm asking them to do so that they can listen. If I have critical feedback, they can know I don't just care about them, but I actually know what I'm talking about. And so trust and esteem. And then ultimately, the third thing we talk about here is permission, which is, would it be okay if I gave you some feedback on this? Or could I help you out and offer a critique on the way you just did that thing or what you're submitting right now? And so in the spirit of leadership, I think the three skills that I operate around or that I think about are trust, esteem, and permission are super, super important.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sweet. And I feel like the typical kind of marketing journey is one that's more like I learned like PPC and then I did this and then I did that, whereas like for you, it's more like the mindsets and the ability to lead, the ability to work with the people that, maybe have developed that technical know-how or that kind of stuff. And I dig it. It's kind of more foundational, cross applicable skills, I guess, like
Sure.
which would make sense, like why you've been able to kind of shift between different disciplines.
Yeah.
And pretty vastly different disciplines, head of marketing versus head of people.
Yeah.
Versus like outbound sales guy or.
It's funny because as I've looked at my own journey and obviously experienced it up to this point, the manifestation of the roles or the disciplines are on the surface very different, but at the core, that's where I feel like it's the exact same job, just in this lens or in this playing field. And I think that is where the most important skill, when I actually stepped into this role for the head of marketing, the first thing I did was contact people and to ask questions and try to find experts or people that I esteemed as talented marketers. And I think the most important piece of advice I got was you just have to know how to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
And from there, you can really do anything. And so, yeah, very non-traditional route to get, I guess, to where I'm at right now.
Yeah. I like it. There's a lot to be learned from that. Okay, so here's another question for you. So you've spent a decent amount of time leading people. So when you're making hiring decisions or team building decisions, what kind of things do you look for to suss out like who the A players are, who the top talent is that you actually want on your team?
Yeah, it's a good question.
Yeah.
I think given my background or given my journey so far, that creates, obviously it informs the lens through which I assess people. I haven't, again, I never took a class on PPC. I never took a class on SEO. I never took a class on, Amazon sales or e-commerce or anything like that. Email marketing, best strategies, none of that. And so naturally, I think not that I don't value those as much because they're super, super critical. And we have incredible people on the team who have taken courses and learned from amazing people, a lot of BYUI. But the most important thing that I'm looking for A players are people who understand the principle of how to be managed and how to be an employee. Those people will find where they can add value and they'll just add value. And they're comfortable with even ambiguity. They don't necessarily pin everything into a box. Rather, their eyes are always open. It's almost like on a basketball court. Instead of always running the exact play as it's written, they're able to interpret in real time where they should be to make a play and to have impact. And so it seems like A players to me are people who understand their first job is to manage up and to, my job really isn't the director of marketing first. It's how can I be helpful to the CEO first. Right now, that's director of marketing. And so that's where I'm going to spend my time, but always just checking and understanding what's important to him now. I think that's given me a lot of learning, and the people that I've led or people that I've really resonated with have that similar attribute to be able to always be asking questions on how can I be helpful? How can I be helpful? It works internally. It also works towards customers, and we've had a lot of success asking the same question to customers about how can we be helpful.
I love it. So it sounds like the kind of the ideal hire, someone that you really want on a team, is someone who has a good blend of like, you know, the independence of being able to figure things out,
Right.
but also the teachability of, you know, being willing to take feedback and being willing to, you know, when direction is given, they'll follow it.
Yeah.
And some mix of obviously coming with some good hard skills to the table as well.
Yeah, what I've come to call that spirit is the willingness to be right and willingness to be wrong. And somehow it seems like often someone's willing to be right and they're not that willing to be wrong, or they're super willing to be wrong and it's like, oh, you're right, I was wrong. And somehow I think A players just balance that ability to do both.
Yeah. No, I've seen similar things as we've hired interns and, you know, tried to build the team a little bit and work with different people.
Yeah.
So I totally agree with what you're saying. Okay. And then last question for this section. So when you're approaching, like, you know, setting the marketing strategy or kind of figuring out, you know, if there's a dip in sales or if anything like that happens, like, you know, how do you approach making a strategy? How do you approach solving marketing problems?
Such a good question. And obviously the answer is the $1 million question. How do you always have a strategy that'll effectively grow sales, right? And that's a challenge, and it's something I'm still learning, you know, how to be better at. But I think the most important thing that I've been focusing on in my time here at this role so far has been spending time with customers. One of the first things that we did as a marketing team when I stepped in is we wanted to start a campaign of everybody on the marketing team spending time every single day calling customers and asking for feedback and asking if we've let them down, how we can improve, or if we've done well, what was it that we did well? And I think that relationship or that feedback loop with customers has to be where we start with our strategy. And over the past few months, we've developed what we are calling our brand strategy, and it's all about our customer. And what's beautiful about, I think a good strategy is it simplifies the world into one piercing, anchor, or one piercing strategy that really determines and ties everything we do to that strategy. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So if people come out to hear you on Thursday, what's a little taste of what you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, so it's going to be all about the world that I've come into and the world that I've had to try to sift through, which is a world of a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of data, a lot of complex marketing tactics on, this is how we are supposed to write the best hook, or this is how we're supposed to do the best ad, or this is the way that we're supposed to execute on this specific tactic. And I think over the past 10 months, what has come to the surface as really the most critical thing is talking to customers and not talking about ourselves or promoting the coolest cup in the world, but really focusing on what matters to the customer. And we'll talk about strategies and tactics that I've learned and been focusing on my time here to really focus on the customer and what matters to them, and focus a lot less on us and what we think matters to us and our cool way to manipulate the customer to achieve X thing. It'll be a lot about how do we actually be helpful to what customers want and how that correlates with sales and success.
Yeah, sweet. I love it. I'm excited to hear it.